Students, here's your tutorial on creating the working drawing set for the Arbor press. So what you want to do, very first thing, is you want to make sure that you go to the Canvas calendar, and in February there is the Arbor press template that is on the 4th. You're going to go ahead and click that, and you're going to download that drawing, and you're going to place that into your U drive where you have your folder with your Arbor press. Once you've downloaded it, you can go ahead and open up that document, and it will eventually go ahead and open in Inventor. If we take a quick look at it, it has name, file name on the left, date, material, scale, volume, and your period. So next, we're going to create a bunch of sheets. The first sheet is going to be our rendered view, and so I'm just going to go ahead and slow click twice on the name, and I'm going to change that to render. And I'm just going to create all my sheets first. So I'm going to click New Sheet. I'll come back and fill in the period and scale later. And I'm going to slow double click on this, and this is going to be the exploded view. Create another sheet. Again, I'm going to put these in later. And because the exploded view is so large, we're going to put a parts list on another page. After the parts list, we are going to have the column. And if the slow click's not working for you, you can always right click and edit the sheet, and you can change the name there. So we have column. We are going to actually need 2 columns. So I'm just going to call this column 2. We need 2 for that. After that, we're going to create another sheet, and this is going to be the gear plate. And the cover plate. This is what we'll start with, our different pictures, and then we're going to start putting in things one by one. So for the exploded view, again, we've seen how to do this from the automata, but this will be quick. So I've gone to the exploded view, I'm going to bring in the base, and I'm going to bring in the exploded view. And this is the position. I'm following the position from the drawing template, and I'm just going to change the scale here till I get something that I think is appropriately sized. Okay, it was 1 to 3, so now I can go in and I can edit the field text. The scale is going to be 1 to 3, or it's actually 1 to 2, I believe. And the period, that's going to be your period you're in, and then this one's not going to have a material show up because there's a couple different pieces of material here. You're going to go through and you're going to balloon this all out. Again, the ballooning should look like this under Annotate, Balloon, and the first time you select something, it's just going to make sure you have the correct BOM structure, and then you're going to put in your balloons. So 14, I only need to do it once because there's a bunch of these socket head cap screws that are all the same. So again, just go through and balloon each one out. I won't go through that right now. Under parts lists, we're going to create a parts list, and it says select document. Well, I can't select a view because I don't see anything, so instead I'm going to select that exploded view, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and I'm going to put that right in the middle of the page, and I'm going to make some changes to it. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to edit the parts list. I'm going to select column chooser. I'm going to get rid of description, and I'm going to add in material, and I'm going to add in volume. I'm going to select OK. Looks through, everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to size this now to try to fit my page as best as I can. the item and quantity can actually be pretty small. And then I can use that to, again, just continue to resize what I have. So it takes a little bit of an effort, but if you just move the item quantity over, make it bigger, then everything should fit just like that. This is a good way to check right now as I go through this. You can see that the rack pad right now is a generic material for me. So that's something I'm going to have to go back and change. You want to make sure that it's aluminum or steel based on the drawing. Again, something I'm going to go back and switch up. Now for the parts list, I can also edit the field text, and the period again will be your period. There is no scale on this, and then everything else is just brought in. If we have time, we might get to this. Alright, moving on. The one thing we haven't done yet is the render, but there's videos on that. Let's go to the column. And for the column, we're going to set it up in 2 pages that we want to see. So our first one for the column is going to be the front view, or not, I wouldn't say, it would look like this view. So we're going to do this view. And for the scale, what I found fits is going to be a 2:3 scale. You might be able to get away. Let's see what 1:1 looks like. Yeah, 1:1's a bit too big. So 2:3. We can even go, we can try out a 4:5 actually isn't bad. So we might go with that. And then you're going to put in the right side. Looks like that. I'm going to double click on this view, and I do not want to see hidden lines. So those are the 2 views for the column that we're going to use on the front side. This is going to be used to dimension all of our holes out. And then additionally, what we'll do is I'm going to make this a little bit wider. And because trying to dimension where all these front holes are and where they are in relationship, I'm going to create a detail view. So once I select that detail view, I'll click on the front face. I can start the view identifier as an A right now. And then I'm going to take my fence shape. I'll leave it as circular, that's fine. And I'm going to kind of go right in the center of this face and just drag out a view. Make sure the A is kind of off to the side. You might need to reposition that later. But I'll click here in the middle, and now specifically this is a bit too large of a scale, so I might want to come back and actually edit this view to change up the scale. So 1.6 is a little big, so 1:1's not bad. So now what I can do here is I can actually set up my center points and do a better job of dimensioning edges and whatnot. Again, follow your dimensioning guidelines, making sure you're getting all your commands in. For the next column, we will go from the left side, so we want to be able to see these back holes. And again, I'll do this 4/5, 4:5. And then I want to see the front, and then I'll bring up a top view. Now for this one, the 4:5 I'm seeing is actually a little big. So I'll go back to the 3/5. I'm going to go straight up, straight over, and it's going to be more of a traditional multi-view. I'll go ahead and turn the hidden lines off so I just see the holes. And what this does is it gives me an area to dimension how far that front slot goes back in. For this, I'm actually going to delete this view. I don't want that. I'm going to move this over, and I actually want to see the back. I got one hole in the back that I need to see, so I'm going to delete the view. I'm going to select projected, this face, and move to the left. So now I have that hole for that very large 3/8 cap screw that I can see in the back. So I do have 2 drawings, looking good. Next, the gear plate and the cover plate. There are examples of those up at the front of the classroom. Please take a look at those, but this is how we're generally setting up with everything. Some notes in the parts list. You can see the volumes. Double check to make sure they are displaying correctly and that you do have the correct volumes for what you've been working on. Next, we're going to do one more thing to get things set up. We're going to actually edit the dimension styles of a few different pieces so things look a little bit better as you're working with them. To do that, quickest way is I'm just going to throw in a dimension. It doesn't have to be necessarily right away, but I'm just going to throw in a dimension, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to edit the dimension style. And inside edit the dimension style, I'm going to change the precision under units. Right now it's only showing to the 2nd decimal place. I'm going to go to the 4th. And then under display, I'm going to get rid of trailing 0. So if something is, 3 inches, it display 3.000. Well, I don't want those trailing zeros, so I'm going to get rid of those. So I'm going to save and close on that, and you can see 3.5 is shown there. Yeah, and that's what we want. Next, for our hole notes, we used holes for most of this, and hopefully you used holes and not extruded holes, or I should say extruded circles. But there is a hole and thread note feature. So again, I wanted to show you this as you're working on it. If you select hole and thread note, and you click on the hole, you can see it will actually bring the thread note out there for you. So this is an 832 hole, and it's a UNC classification 2B. We don't need the classification necessarily. So what you're going to do is you're going to edit when you place hole notes in here. I'm going to show you how to do that. Hit escape so you're not in the hole and thread note. You're going to just double click, and right here where it says THRC, you can highlight that and delete it, and instead you can put a quantity note. Go ahead and hit OK, and you'll now see there are 832 UNC, and there are 4 of them. One thing we do not have here is going to be the depth of our hole. So in front of the quantity note, I want to bring in how far those holes go down. So what I need to do first is I'm going to insert a symbol, and I'm going to insert the depth symbol, and then I'm going to actually bring in the depth. So these are the values. They look like the symbols, but these are the values. So when I click here, bring in the depth symbol, then actually select hole depth value, and then I want to make sure that there's at least a space between those two in the quantity note. So I can hit OK. And you can see there that it's 832, goes deep 0.438, and there are 4 of them. So again, that's a hole note for those 4 holes, and you can use that same idea for the other ones. Last thing I'll show is some of these holes are on circular patterns, for example these. To do that, what we can do is we can select the centered pattern, and what we do is we'd say, okay, these are on a pattern. I would select the center of a pattern or something that shares the center, and then I would select the holes, and as you see going around, it starts to create that center mark. I'm going to right click and create, and then if you want you can kind of drag that closer, and now you have that center line in which you can dimension the diameter, or you can dimension the radius out too. So again, that center line for diameter, so someone again, like you drew out the circle and you dimensioned it, you know where the center of the holes are. And there are 3 of them. There you go. So that's kind of a video to help you get set up, get you moving, make sure as you're going through you're putting in your scale, your volume, your material, anything that you've seen missing.